joining us for today's webinar, The Now Generation Unveiled, Successfully Marketing to Millennial Travelers. I'm Janae Wyatt, CHNLA Member Services Coordinator. As always, just a couple of quick announcements to start things off. First off, just in case you missed Jim Abrams' live seminar on legal refreshers for B&Bs and hotels a couple of months back, you will have a second chance to get all that info again, as Jim will be presenting a webinar on the same topic, and that's going to be taking place on December 18th at 10 a.m. And then also, Jim Abrams, who is our member legal advisor, along with Jeffrey Thorell of Fisher & Phillips, LLP, they're going to be presenting two in-person seminars discussing new laws for the state of California and an employment legislative update. So the dates on that is January 22nd. They'll be at the Embassy Suites, LAX South, and on January 28th at the Grand Hyatt in San Francisco. So if you would like more information on either of these events or to register, you can go to our website, calodging.com/events. President Robert Rauch and Associates in San Diego. Administration from Western International University and a master's degree in tourism administration from Arizona State University. He sits on the board of directors of the San Diego Tourism Marketing District and has served as chairman and president of several tourism organizations nationally, regionally, and in San Diego. And he also teaches a class at Arizona State University Resort Leadership Program and publishes Hospitality Insights as well. And then the second speaker, Junvi Ola, is the industry's leading hotel and resort copywriter and content marketer. As a principal writer and editor at Hospitality Content Studio, she works with hotels and resorts, DMOs, and other travel businesses to tell their stories, to entice and engage travelers and meeting planners. She writes and edits for travel websites, email marketing campaigns, blogs, brochures, press releases, social media. She has several years of destination marketing experience at the San Diego Tourism Authority and is a principal blogger for CETA. So with that said, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Bob.
So thank you very much, Janae. Of course, all that stuff about my background just makes me sound old, and I just want the listeners to know it is my 30th birthday today, although it is the second time that I'm having my 30th birthday. So in any case, I was delighted to be able to do a birthday webinar to all of the really cool people in California who are listening in. So what Junvi and I have laid out is I will provide a background on this incredible generation that we call the Millennials, or Gen Y. And then Junvi is going to show us or walk us through really how to market directly to this group, as that's her expertise. So the one thing I want everybody to know is that this is now the largest group in the history of the world. The millennial generation was never talked about before because it was always the kids. The baby boomers were the generation that was the big generation. Everybody was saying this is the biggest generation in the history of the world. Well, not anymore. So this largest group in history is one that we'll be talking about very, very soon. So who are the millennials? Well, the one thing I'd like to do is, for many decades now, and I say that because I've been in the industry 40 years now, I've been talking about all the generational groups and who they are. And so this largest group that I just talked about is the youngest group, but it started with the World War I babies, who by and large are no longer around, the Depression babies, who are still traveling, although they are no longer leaders in the travel industry. They're still your AAA, AARP rate. They're in their 80s now. There's the World War II babies still traveling along. The baby boomers, as you might know, have both the early and late baby boomers. They're in their 50s and 60s. So my group, I'm kind of the early baby boomer group. And then there's the late baby boomer group. They're still really traveling in abundance. Then there's the Gen Xers, that was also referred to as the lost generation. So anybody who's between 35 and 50, don't feel lost. You're in between two big generations, but you can make things happen too. And we're going to talk again about Gen Y, which is generally talked about as under 35. So those are your generations. So they are 25%. This Gen Y is 25% of the U.S. population. and 30% of the U.S. workforce. And they are the largest consumer group in U.S. history, as I mentioned, and have $200 billion in annual buying power. So the ways to identify Gen Y. Avid technology users. As many of you know, and I'd love to know, and I forgot to ask Janae whether or not she could kind of do a test as to how many of you are Gen Yers. Like if you're on the call and you're a Gen Yer, you probably could do this with us because you know exactly what you're looking for. You were born with computers, almost. If you were born in the early 1980s, computers were already coming to fruition. I know I used my first one in 1987. Find great value in social interaction, and the key takeaway for me is that there's a large focus on finding a work-life balance in this Gen Y worker. So they work long hours if they want to, but they really like to have a balance. And so what I'm finding, because we have 17 hotels and almost all of our general managers are Gen Yers, which I never would have imagined at all. Just 5 years ago, I never would have thought that our general managers would all be Gen Yers, but I'd say their average age is actually under 30. And they do want a work-life balance. So I push them as hard as I can, but come 6 o'clock, they want to get the heck out of here. And I understand that. Family is important to them, and a balance in their lives is very important to them. Same thing out in the field. When you are entertaining Gen Yers, they want to have some fun things to do, so we're going to talk about that in a minute. So their travel patterns, they are like for personal travel. That's because they like to explore. They're willing to spend more for better experiences, which is also important. Baby boomers, if you recall, or you know for a fact, they are very, very much driven by dollars, whereas the Gen Yers are more interested in quality. And they're very well traveled. So they know a good guest experience from a bad one, and that can come back to haunt you on social media. We'll talk about that pretty soon here. So the Millennials take nearly 9 trips per year, and they're likely to voice complaints when they're unsatisfied. So how does that impact us? Well, as you know, whether it's Facebook or Yelp or TripAdvisor or any of the OTAs or any social media network where they can voice their complaints, they will. And the old adage about if you like something, you'll tell one person. If you don't like it, you'll tell 10. Well, I think we all know now with social media that 10 is probably closer to 1,000 or it could even be 10,000. They enjoy leisure travel, and we're going to have to deal with what it is to have. So before we get to how to market to them, just some industry facts now on millennials. We've seen an 84% increase in extending business trips in the past year, and 85% of these Gen Yers are likely to use reward points. And they're obviously getting those reward points when they travel for business and using them for leisure. And of course, as an aside, I'm also careful when I'm serving at the front desk of a hotel and a guest wants a refund because they're angry. Sometimes giving them some credit that actually benefits their business is not going to make them happy. So we have to be mindful of the fact that they may be looking for some points or something that helps them personally if we have made it inconvenient for them on their business trip. Now, 24% of millennials travel on business for at least one night per week, and this very interesting statistic came from Bill Marriott himself. And what Mr. Marriott said is that 70 to 80% of Marriott business will come from Gen X and Gen Y over the next 5 to 10 years. Now, that really means that we've reached that tipping point where baby boomers are no longer driving the lodging industry. It is going to be this Gen Y because they're so much larger than the Gen X. This generation is the industry, is the demographic to focus on. Okay, personalized, unique experience and great food. And something interesting about great food is, and I do not mean to trash Holiday Inns. I think the world of IHG and Holiday Inns. But the old Holiday Inn, before it was reinvented, had a reputation of having truly mediocre food. And I can tell you right now, Gen Y travelers have zero interest in the hotel of the past with their mediocre food. And I remember them well because I always competed with those Holiday Inns, and I wondered, how is it that all of our hotels all have mediocre food? And the reputation has now changed, and Gen Yers look for those hotels that have good food. They prefer great food. They also like to interact socially. They love communal meeting spaces. So if you'll notice, the two brands that were built in abundance over the last 15 to 20 years was Courtyard by Marriott and Hilton Garden Inn. And they built those hotels originally, Hilton and Marriott, with really poorly designed lobbies and lounges and poor food and beverage for the Gen Y generation. They built it for the baby boom generation. And they really had to adjust. And if you'll notice, if you walk into a Hilton Garden Inn or Marriott Courtyard lobby today, you will notice how much they've taken from the concept of Starwood's W, or frankly, the new competitors in the market like Hyatt Place, because these hotels get the Gen Y generation, and so Hilton and Marriott had to get that generation. Very, very important to have those lobby hubs. The other thing that is really, really critical before we talk about marketing to this group is understanding their desire for free Wi-Fi, advanced technology, and the fact that they really want to spend the majority of their time outside of their hotel room. So what I'm going to do now is try to gracefully turn this over to my friend, colleague, and premier social media marketer, content marketer extraordinaire, Junvi Ola, who will tell you how to really sell and market to this group.
Well, thank you, Bob, for that introduction, and thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. I'm so excited to share this information with you, so let's get right down to it.
And one thing I want to mention that, first of all, Junvi and I will open this up for questions as soon as her presentation is over now.
Absolutely.
We are looking forward to answering any and all questions.
Absolutely. So let's get started. The first thing is focus on the experience with millennials. They truly don't care about your customer service awards or how long you've been in business. While that is all fantastic for your marketing and you definitely want those accolades behind you, just know that that's not something that millennials will base their decision-making on when they're looking for a hotel. And what they are looking for is they're looking for something special. They're looking for something that will make your hotel experience stand out amongst all of their other travel memories. So millennials are going to start researching hotels in abundance before they make a decision. That means that you have to make your hotel distinguish yourself right away. You have to let them know right away what you have that your competition doesn't. They're really looking for something that will make their trip stand out, like I said, in their memories. So give them something authentic, give them something novel, and give them something new to experience. Next, use storytelling to bond with millennials. Millennials will tend to tune out if they know that they're being sold to. But if you're going to be adding something of value, or if you're showing them that you're truly there to help them, then they will get on board. So showcase your hotel stories via social media, via your blog, through your email newsletters, and even better, start producing videos. Videos are big with millennials. So I don't want you to worry about videos. I think a lot of hoteliers get a little bit nervous when they hear about videos. They think that a big production is needed, and that's truly not the case. You can do simple, great storytelling with a handheld video camera. You can go to your executive chef and show them putting together a dinner. You can go to your bartender and ask them what their favorite nightlight spots are in your town. The one tip, though, that I would offer is if your video is going to be something on a handheld camera and your production is going to be just a few staff members involved, then you just want to make sure to have a really good mic. I've seen a lot of good videos that could have definitely used help only because there was no mic involved, and so you really couldn't hear what anyone was saying in those videos. So just to reinforce, you just want to make sure that you give millennials the value of your experience through storytelling. Another tip is just know that we're a generation that can barely remember the world without the internet, without Google, and even without smartphones. So traditional marketing techniques that might have worked in the past just simply won't work anymore. You can't use over-the-top claims such as, my hotel is the best at this, or we're the top hotel in this section of town, because those are things that could easily be disputed, and you definitely don't want to come off like that, because just know that we go through so many phases of research when we're booking hotels. We're going online, we're talking to our friends in person, we're talking to our friends online, and we're also reading all of your reviews. So just know that we definitely have our research covered by the time we make that purchase with your property. Another thing is adapt quickly. Technology, especially in social media marketing, is moving so fast, and millennials are just as quick to adopt these new social media tools. So I would recommend designating 1 or 2 people to really watch for these emerging trends. So if a meeting planner is going to ask you for a Vine video or an Instagram video, you want to be ready to know what they're talking about. This doesn't mean that you have to be on board with every new social media tool that comes up, but definitely be watching for them, definitely be ready when you think that you have the resources and the team to put something together. Market with Spunk and Creativity, there's a reason why ad campaigns like the Old Spice guy go viral, and I'm sure a lot of you remember that. It was so funny. And the reason why that went viral wasn't really because of that guy. It was this sexy model, sexy athlete. No, it was because it was spunky. It was unexpected. And it was too funny and it was too quirky not to share with everyone you know. And millennials, we really actively want to support businesses that make us laugh or that show some type of imagination. So I have this example here of Campbell's Soup. I think they did a really great job at this. They took basically their soup out of the can to target to millennials. They made it something that could be used on the go. Instead of flavors like chicken noodle soup and clam chowder, the flavors that we're used to in our childhood, that's all gone, and they came up with these adventurous, globally inspired flavors instead. And the cool thing is that they actually used millennials on their packaging. And to be honest, that's kind of what stopped me in the shopping aisle at the grocery store, was these goofy looks on their faces. So really use some humor when you're trying to market to millennials. And this is something that many of you already know. So you must have a mobile version of everything: your website, your email marketing, your booking engine. And if you do, I encourage you to test it out yourself. So try it out on your own device. See, can you easily make a reservation at your hotel using just one hand, using your hotel, your cell phone? Or can you easily find the details of your meeting space and photos and contact info? We're the first generation to grow up being wired, so you have to make sure that all of your platforms are up to speed, especially for tablets and for smartphones. And when it comes to your desktop presence, you have to know that millennials, we're pretty impatient, I have to admit. We want information quickly, and we want it easily. We don't want to wait until your second paragraph to find the information that we need. And we don't want to be scanning endlessly on your website to figure out how to book a room, to figure out how many room types you have, or things that might be important to us. Just know that a website to a millennial is truly a reflection of the experience that you're about to offer. And if you have a messy or an outdated website, it's only going to make a millennial doubt booking a room with you. And if there's any doubt in their mind, that's something that you definitely don't want to pursue, so it definitely has to be changed. You just want to make sure that you don't make a millennial wait too long to get what they need to book a room with you, or they're quickly going to just give up and go to your competition. Word of mouth marketing is, number 1, very much alive. Number 2, it's bigger than ever. And number 3, it's all online. And like Bob was saying, if a millennial has a trip and they enjoy the experience, they're happy to share that with their friends. And not just close friends in person, but their entire social media network, which comprises people that they haven't seen for years and years, but yet they still have impact on. So my recommendation is to don't only focus on that one reservation of a millennial guest. Just think of the bigger impact that they'll have on your reputation. They might not have reached their full earning potential just yet, but just know that they will have money someday, and it's just best to get started influencing them and their friends now. So be conversational instead of going viral. I know going viral is really the goal of many hotels today, and that's all fantastic. Millennials, I have to say, we appreciate more viral ads more than anyone else, truly. But you have to make sure that what you're putting out there in terms of your marketing material are not just going to be viral just for the sake of being viral. You want to make sure that you are contributing information that we could actually use, that we could actually talk about later. So create a conversation around your hotel. Be useful to us and be relevant. Don't just aim for short-lived humor. And talking about conversations, I recommend you join conversations that are already happening instead of always trying to start a conversation about your hotel from the very beginning. The hotel brands that do the best with bonding with millennials are the ones that really become a social media concierge, if you will, online. So this is a great way to gain trust with millennials, is to really monitor the keywords on social media that people generally use when they're looking for your destination. So your destination's name, the name of your neighborhood, a major attraction that's close to your hotel. Look for those keywords on social media. Chime in when people are talking about it, when people are asking questions about those places. Chime in and help them, be of assistance, and that's one of the best ways to bond with Gen Yers. Okay, we're headed to the end here. Okay, number 11, Bob stressed this, and I couldn't agree more, but you have to make sure, you have to be aware of a bad millennial review. If we have a bad experience at a hotel, we are not only going to leave a TripAdvisor review, but we're also going to share that review with our entire social media network. And since we do so much research up front, we feel that we're really well versed on what's going to make a good hotel experience. So if we don't get that, if those expectations aren't met at your hotel, we're more than willing to voice our complaints online after the fact. So my recommendation is truly just to respond to these quickly and don't ignore them. Even if you can't make things right with that one traveler who left that review, you can at least impact the other travelers who are going to read your response later on. So I think you should take this opportunity of any bad reviews left by Millennial or whoever else to just really soften the blow and to make your customer service shine afterward. And also let us know that you're current, especially if you're a long-term hotel brand in your area and maybe you've been around for 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, but you still want to show millennials that you're currently relevant. You really have to just tell us that you are. And so for this example, I use Timberland. It's been around for 40 years. I truly know it as something that my dad wears, and I may not have ever considered something that I'd want to purchase that would be Timberland brand. But they really focused this year on attracting millennials, and what they ended up doing was they put less focus on the shoes, and they're going to share the spotlight with another fashion-driven line of accessories, of clothing and apparel, and they really wanted to make it something that millennials would jump on board with. And if you see their tagline, they even say, best then, better now, they're basically spoon-feeding us that message that we are relevant to today's millennials, and this is why. So for our very last marketing tip is give us something to brag about. Just know that millennial travelers, they're going to be talking about their experience with you, whether you like it or not. And to be honest, when we travel, we want to brag about our experience. So really aim to wow us and give us things that are picture-worthy. And you've probably seen it many times in your property. People are posting selfies of themselves traveling all throughout the internet. So make sure that you're actually giving these millennial guests opportunities to do something cool that they're going to want to share on social media.
So now is see if there are any questions out there. And Junvi, while we're waiting to see if some questions come in electronically, I wanted to point out slide 11 and 13. That we traditionally have in the lodging industry. The first one we don't really talk about in the lodging industry, and that's basic service. More likely to get that from the postal service. And I don't mean the broadband postal service. I mean the U.S. Postal Service. And then expected service, which you might get from a traditional hotel. Desired service that you might get from a really good hotel. But wow customer service is the only service that the millennials are going to post and brag about, and that will bring them back saying, wow. And so when Junvi said you really need wow customer service, what she's really talking about is that wow customer service has to be something worthy of bragging about. So what we want to do here is make sure we answer questions. And so I believe that as a user, you have the ability to put in a question electronically. And the fact that I'm not seeing it on the board here
Hey, Bob, did any questions come up?
Well,
I don't think so, Janae.
Here's one.
Well, I can read them for you because I actually see that you have talked about 4 questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the first one is, can you please give some examples on how to charm? Slide number 10.
On how to charm?
Okay, that's what it says, but who was that? Sita that wrote that question. If you can maybe clarify a little bit on that. So going on to the next one, how do you feel about text messaging, using that for marketing versus emailing, which seems pretty much spam to death these days?
You know, I'm a big supporter of it. I think that millennials are definitely inundated with emails, just like we all are. But it's definitely a necessity that you're still always going to have in business. So I don't get rid of your email marketing just yet. But I think text messaging is a great way. You know that we're always on our text or our cell phone texting. And I have actually signed up for a few businesses' SMS campaigns. And I definitely have to say that while I may forget about them, the moment they text me with the new promo, I definitely am more apt to purchase. So I am a big supporter of that.
Never want to abuse it, though.
Yeah, don't abuse it. Don't spam them. Just know that they are paying for every text message that comes to their phone. So use it sparingly, but make sure that you have a strategy behind it, just like with anything else.
So,
Okay, another question.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Were you still answering the last question?
Janine, if you could, we're having trouble reading them here. Oh, we found them.
Okay.
Okay. So, do we want to go back to how to charm?
Yes, I think, Seda, you might be, if you're looking at slide 10, I think you might be giving me examples on how to chime in. I hope that's just what you're asking.
No, wait a minute. I think she's clarified this. Are there conflicts between the marketing approaches? Is that?
Well, this is Mark.
Oh, okay. slide number 10, or she just wants you to reiterate how we charm people on slide 10.
Is it, Seda, could you just specify, is it tip number 10 or slide 10? Because they're different things. While Seda answers that, I'm going to move on to a next question. Are millennials repeat customers or one-stay guests?
Great question.
It is a great question. And what do you think? Thoughts?
I think they're definitely repeat. Absolutely repeat. I think they have quite a bit of loyalty. And the baby boomers did not initially have any loyalty. They've turned the loyalty programs, like whether it's the airline programs, award programs,
sure,
hotel award programs, have gotten the boomers to become even more loyal. But I think the Gen Yers are also loyal, but they want to find new things.
I agree with that. I have to say it might seem like they're fickle at the very beginning, and that's because they're looking for a hotel that they can truly love in your destination. So while they may be switching brands at first, once they find a hotel that they can truly have an amazing experience at, you can bet that they're going to come back.
Well, here's the reason, and the reason that's a good question is the baby boomers are a little different in this regard. They will trade down based on rate. They may stay in the same system due to brand loyalty. In other words, if it's a major brand that has a verticality of brands from hard budget to super luxury, they may trade down. But they could stay loyal but trade down and leave that hotel. But if you're an independent hotel, they're not going to stay somewhere else for $5 cheaper. They prefer quality, and I really think that's the key. So if you provide the wow service and you're $5, $10, $20 more, or even more, I think you're fine, and I don't think you'll lose them for a few bucks.
Right.
Okay,
so next question.
It was the tip 10 from Seda.
Oh, thank you, Seda, for clarifying that. So the number 10 tip, I think you meant to say chime in. How do you chime in and be helpful via social media? For example, if you go into Twitter search and you do a keyword search for, say, San Diego, where me and Bob are from, and we're looking to see why people are mentioning San Diego, how they're mentioning San Diego, and granted that is definitely a loaded keyword because there's so many things that could be listed in San Diego if you looked on Twitter, but I'm just using it as an example here. If we were to see a question, if our marketing team here were to see a question that says, what are the best things to do in San Diego? I'm coming there in a few weeks. That would be a perfect time to chime in, to use your Twitter account to answer, hey, we're right next to the Del Mar racetracks. They're just starting their races right now. They're definitely one of the most exciting things happening. Or something like that. You definitely want to look and listen to what conversations are already in place, because imagine how much more impact that answer was about the hotel or the Del Mar racetrack versus if you were just to put out a tweet about the Del Mar racetracks. It has more impact because you're helping someone who specifically asked a question and who was looking for help. And you have to think in terms of a concierge. If a concierge were in a room of people asking questions about your destination, they're not going to sit quietly. They're going to actually answer the question and be of help. So that's what I meant by chiming in, is really, even if they're not directing the question to you, but if they put it out on Twitter, they're really putting it out, to the public. So that is something that you can answer to on Twitter yourself.
So Kevin's question is, what is the best place to use social? And I think the question is really, where's the action? And clearly, Facebook and Twitter have had the action. Junvi, what are your thoughts?
I agree. Of course, Facebook and Twitter are the powerhouses of social media. But you also have to see who, since we are talking about millennials, yes, those are the major ones. But also think about, are millennials really your biggest market for your property? If they're not, I don't know if Twitter would be the best place to be. But I do have to second what Bob said about Pinterest and Instagram. Instagram is definitely heavy a lot of times for F&B. People love taking these cool pictures of their food. And also, Pinterest, people are dreaming about traveling on Pinterest. You must be on Pinterest. It's all about the imagery. It's all about creating that dream and getting in that early stage of travel planning where they're really sitting at their desk daydreaming about taking a trip.
And just remember that women rule, and
Yes.
Pinterest is dominated by women.
Absolutely, and women are making a majority of those business or those travel decisions for their families, for their friends. So,
As
and
long
even
as
couples.
a wife and 2 daughters, I can attest I have zero decision-making on our vacations. Okay, next question is, are there conflicts between the marketing approaches for boomers, millennials, and Gen X, and how do you resolve them in your messaging? That's a good question, not an easy one to answer concisely. I will try by saying it is really key to understand the differences. And Gen X was never studied. Nobody ever did a really good job of studying the Gen Xers because they weren't considered large enough. So the boomers were studied. I've got all sorts of things I read about how the boomers were going to transform the world, and now we're talking about how the millennials are going to transform the world. Certainly quality is important regardless, and focusing on quality. But it's a difficult question because there are some nuances certainly between boomers and millennials. Junvi, what am I missing there?
It is definitely a hard question to answer, and it also depends on how well you're segmenting your market. For instance, if we were talking about email marketing, and you wanted to have messages that were pertinent to all of those generations, you truly have had to start from the very beginning with creating your list. Do you have a list that is labeled, internally, millennial or boomer?
The real answer really comes from our listeners today, because the text message might be the best way, ultimately, whether it's today or a year or 2 from now, to get to the millennial, and the email might be the best way to get to the boomer, but the messaging, I believe, is not different. It's the platform. So the Twitter and text might be better for the millennial generation. The Facebook and email might be better for the boomers, and then there are obviously messages that are good for everybody. So you just need to look at which platform, which message, and I think you can bifurcate that successfully, but it does take some thinking, strategy.
And I think also that millennial marketing really should be your ideal, only because a lot of the things that appeal to millennials in terms of marketing, in terms of giving us information quickly, easily, I think all generations want that. So I believe that you should really think about millennials wanting things that other generations also want, but we just want it faster and even better. And so use that as your ideal.
And the next question here is, can we recommend an SMS marketing company? And Junvi, if you want to, you can, or what we could do is offline, Greg, we could answer that question. What do you think?
Yeah, Greg, that would be great. I actually don't know of any on the top of my head, but I'm definitely happy to do some research for you if you wanted to email us later.
Okay, next question here is, for videos, do you suggest using YouTube?
Absolutely, yes. You have to be on YouTube.
Absolutely.
There's no other place I would recommend you be is other than YouTube if you're going to get into videos.
Junvi did talk about the importance of videos with the millennial generation, and certainly YouTube would be the best platform.
Yes, absolutely.
So the next question after that is, as an independent boutique, are rewards
like stash rewards are critical?
Stash. I'm having trouble reading it. That's why pardon the wait here, Greg. Personalized experience outweigh rewards points. That's a good question. So if you're an independent, you don't have Marriott Awards, Hilton Honors, or any of the top hotel companies, you want to use Stash or some company that appeals to the boutique independent hotels. Is it better to do that, or is there a loyalty? There's certainly not a short answer to that. The important thing, I think, is to stay involved in understanding what drives people to independent hotels. So one of the questions came up earlier about loyalty. And so if we're talking about millennials, they are going to be loyal, and whether or not they drive to a property via a loyalty program or loyal because of the quality remains to be unseen. There's no research on that yet. Junvi, do you have a gut feel on this?
I do have a gut feeling. I'd have to say, Greg, that for me and my contemporaries, when we travel, I don't ever sign up for rewards points. I actually don't like to be locked in, and that might just be a personal preference, but I don't recall any of my other travel buddies, using rewards points or signing up for that when we check in. So I believe that for an independent hotel like yours, I definitely would say that a unique experience is the way to go. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for something that probably can't be replicated anywhere else. So I think that you should focus on that.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions left here. One is, how do you address a bad review? Should you point out where they misunderstood your offer or misused service? Now, I will say this. It is critical to respond to all negative reviews. And you don't need to respond to every single positive review or you'll sound like a broken record, although you certainly want to acknowledge enough of them to let them know you're listening. But how do you address a bad review? I mean, clearly you must apologize. If you're defensive, it can come back to bite you. And certainly there are exceptions for me. There's sometimes, I'll never forget, when I knew I was being scammed, I got hostile with a guest because I was defensive. And this is kind of as I was learning social media and learning how to respond. And I blew it, and it cost me several TripAdvisor rating. I think we went from single digits to double digits in one fell swoop. And I had to earn it back by showing that it was a scam that the guest had performed on us. I won't go into the ugly, dirty details of the scam. But I think you have to be honest and apologize. And you have to say that you'd like to make it right. And I think you want to make it right offline, but you want to make it sincere online. What I mean by that is I don't think you want to tell the world that you're offering comp rooms and dinner for two and a bottle of their favorite wine or champagne just because they complained. But I do think you want to be sincere and apologize.
I second that. I also have to say that, truth be told, the customer is not always right. Sometimes I've seen reviews for a couple of my clients where truly they had the wrong information, where they went to have breakfast and the restaurant wasn't open yet and it drove down the review simply because of that.
Or wrong hotel.
Or wrong hotel. They checked into the wrong hotel and they're mad. Oh, does that happen? Wow.
Absolutely.
Oh, you're right. I can see how that could happen.
It happens.
So in that case, when they are wrong, politeness is still the way to go, and you really have to truly gingerly tell them the truth. So for instance, using my previous example about someone coming to breakfast and the restaurant wasn't open, you just apologize. I'm so sorry that you were waiting. Our restaurant opens at 8 o'clock every morning, and just leave it at that. And I hope that you can visit us next time and enjoy our breakfast on your next visit. So something that's very polite, that in the case of where they're wrong, you should actually educate them just a little bit. Don't drive your point into the wall, but yeah, politely educate them, because that really does a lot for the traveler who's going to read that review later. And at the same time, it actually makes you shine when you can address a review like that. And I know that there's a lot of malicious reviews out there, and you have to treat that the same. You cannot let yourself get malicious as well. And as Bob said, when he did that, he had to really work at rebuilding his cred.
So we're going to close out very soon. Jeff has a message here that I'm not sure I understand.
I think, Jeff Brown, I think you're recommending a company called Mo Greet, spelled M-O and then the word greet, for SMS and marketing, SMS marketing campaigns.
So
who had that question?
If there are no other questions, we want to thank all of you for being here with us. We certainly have had fun here in the studios, and we want to thank Janae and CHNLA, and make sure you are always paying your membership dues on time for CHNLA. We've been members for, I don't know, more years than I can remember.
Absolutely.
Out here, 22 years, yeah. Okay, so thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone, and feel free to reach out.
Bob. Thank you. Just to wrap things up here really quick, again, our next webinar coming up on December 18th is with Jim Abrams doing the legal refresher for B&Bs and hotels, and then in person, January 22nd in LA at the Embassy Suites LAX, and then on the 28th of January at the Grand Hyatt San Francisco. You can go to calodging.com/events to get more info. I see that Junvi and Bob both have their email addresses up, so if you guys have questions, you can always email them, or you can email me if you want.
You can email us or text us.
Or text. There you go. They've got numbers up too. So that this has all been recorded and will be posted on our website a little later this afternoon. But you guys can always email me. It's Jenai, Jenai, @calodging.com. Okay, well, that's going to conclude everything. So thank you so much to Bob and Junvi for a fabulous webinar there. And I will go ahead and end.
Thanks, Claudia, for your birthday wishes.
Thank you so much.
You. Thank you. Everybody have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.